Get out of here. Just want to make sure before somebody says
That's a good idea.
If not. A vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll get to work. Kevin will be in touch on, and I'm happy to talk about that information. Okay. Thank you, have a good evening.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
It's close.
No, you were right, that's what you said.
I remember that, I remember that number.
Next order of business is the approval of minutes, August 28th, 2018. If I could have a motion, please.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Under correspondence, I have a few items here. First is from Cheryl McCauley. It wasn't a formal letter of any sort, but I've just gotten a note. She is requesting a stop sign at the intersection of Perkiomen and Mary Jane.
A stop sign or a bus stop sign?
Bus stop sign, sorry, bus stop sign. Yes. So, just something I can instruct Tom to put up.
Is this in here or no?
Is this in our packet?
No,
Okay.
this just came in late.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, what's required? I mean, can we just,
I took a quick look because I saw that on the agenda. I took a quick look at the MUTCD for guidance. There's a school bus stop ahead sign. Do you think that's what she's looking for, Kevin?
Wants to know about how to get a bus stop sign on Perkiomen Avenue in Mary Jane.
So there is a school bus stop ahead sign. That's the closest thing I found. The guidance is that should be installed in advance of locations where a school bus, when stopped to pick up or discharge passengers, is not visible to road users for an adequate distance, and when there is no opportunity to relocate the school bus stop to provide adequate sight distance. So that's the guidance on where that sign would go. I also looked at PennDOT's website, and they seem to suggest that would be the responsibility of the school district, but I didn't find that in any regulations, and it certainly would. So I guess the question would be, is there a sight distance problem there that would fall within the guidelines of when to apply that sign? And we could certainly take a look at that if the board wanted to do that.
I'm not very familiar with that.
Mary Jane and
Perkiomen.
Perkiomen.
It's pretty flat there.
Straight shot.
That's
there,
pretty
but-
straight, isn't it?
Yeah.
Up Ashworth. You can probably see all the way from at least Third Avenue, if not Third, Fourth Avenue, all the way down.
So they just want like a warning to slow down because there's a school bus stop
Do you
ahead?
want me to call her tomorrow and see if get
Yeah,
clarification?
tell her what Carol said about we can put up a school bus stop ahead. Because putting a sign for the school bus stop is already at that point, it's already too late, if you're already at the school bus stop.
Well, this is the only sign I found in the list of signs for school bus stops. There's one ahead, and you use it when you can't see the bus stop as you're approaching it.
So Kevin is gonna call tomorrow and get
There's
some
also, I think, no
clarification.
sidewalk there, is that one of the other issues, there's no sidewalk?
There isn't any over in Spring Mountain at all.
Yeah, so maybe that's the issue. And how far in advance of the stop do you put it?
It would be based on stopping site distance, so we have a tape for that, a couple hundred feet probably.
So you wanna just tell her that would be a couple hundred feet?
Well, I don't know that you want to do that unless you find out you need to affirm that there is a site distance problem for this sign to be applicable. So if there's no site distance problem, this sign isn't applicable.
Bob?
Yeah, this comes back to the questions we've been bringing up over the last year, and just recently, last month, when Tara Sell, who lives across the street, brought up about, wanting the same sign there. Obviously, the same thing on Main Street at Main and Crystal, where there is a sight distance issue. Main and Boulder would be the same thing, there's a sight distance issue. Zieglerville and Goshen, there's a sight distance problem. And I don't know where the other one is on Zieglerville going down towards Schwenk, but that would be the same thing. So they're the ones we've been talking about, those locations, for the last year plus. And as I said before, I believe Carol had mentioned to me that, I remember back when Tamara was here, that the fellow that lives over on Smith Road off of Game Farm, he said that he actually paid the $450 for the 2 signs, and those signs were put up, but he had to pay for them. And I've gone through everything trying to find it, in our codes or anything, there's nothing that says that the homeowner has to pay for it. As Carol did mention, the school district might be responsible. We called the school district says the township's responsibility.
Well, if
And
there's-
the problem is there's 2 signs, really.
Let's say, if there's that on the list, why don't we get the list and open a line of communication with the school district? Because I would hope that they'd be looking at visibility when they select their stop locations. If they're that long a list, I think we need to open a line of communication between the
Well,
township and
that's
the
what,
school district.
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Let's-
so you're
let's
suggesting
contact
maybe
the
they've got
school.
the school bus stops in a place that is inherently unsafe.
If that's
Yeah.
the case, then we should be talking
Perhaps.
to them.
I can tell you the one, if you're, where the fellow ran his motorcycle into the tree at Zieglerville Road and killed himself. So if you're going down the hill, there's that,
Corner.
Grimley's Corner there, that, as soon as you go down the hill, there's an opening to get into the Cedar Hill. The bus stop is like right after that. So what happened one day last year, guy came around that corner too fast, was coming down, couldn't stop. He actually went through the parking lot while kids were walking through. So, thank God he missed everybody, but he was coming way too fast. And it's the same problem coming up the hill. Well, as soon as you come up the hill, the first driveway on the right, 112, that just put the addition on, they have 3 kids that go to school, and the people across the street in the townhouses have the kids there as well. So that was like a group effort between all those people right there requesting that school bus stop ahead sign.
That's a product of ignorance of not paying attention to to speed limit signs. So if they're not looking at speed limit signs, do you think they're gonna look at bus stop signs?
And here again, I forgot Village Drive, I'm
That's
sorry.
what I'm-
There's
Well, I
three
think we're-
locations.
I think
of
we're bringing
Village
up
Drive.
another issue, which is, I can't speak to all of these stops, but it's possible that some of these places that Bob is mentioning is an inappropriate place for a bus stop. I mean, you can't, I think Cedar Hill's gonna be tough.
Well, years ago, you used to walk a half a mile to your bus stop.
Or to school.
Uphill, both ways.
Our bus stop is right outside our house.
7 miles uphill
That's
both
what
ways.
I'm telling you.
10 feet of snow
Six,
and 20-degree weather.
Uphill both
Uphill both
ways,
ways,
yeah.
But anyway, let's contact the school and let's get on board with the school and see what we can do.
Okay, I'll get with Tom.
And it should be the bus company too. We gotta include them because they have their own contract with the school. And they're the ones that are
Yeah.
making the stops.
Yeah, but also, just to be realistic, we cannot in any way, legally or otherwise, stop people from doing stupid things.
Correct.
I mean, we don't want them to do stupid things, but if people do stupid things, no sign or any kind of enforcement can stop it. So we hope, we will do the best we can, but we
Use that as a
can't.
stop sign. or
And
a
just-
sign, yeah.
Just so you know, you need 2 signs at every stop. You have to have one at each direction. So it's not, if the bus is picking up on the right side, it still has to have a sign on the left side.
Because we're gonna have so many, it's gonna be like Christmas trees.
Okay. Next order is a correspondence received from Amanda Christopho. We live on Burger Lane within the Cedar Hill development. Recently, there's been an increase in the number of parked cars outside of designated spots. Specific concerns are at the start of Goshen at Zieglerville Road. There have been cars parked along both sides of Goshen that cause a safety concern. When cars are parked on both sides, 2 cars cannot pass safely. Furthermore, children often play in this area, and with vehicles parked on both sides poses a risk to their safety. We have also noticed a number of cars parked on both sides of Burger Road, which causes the same concerns. We would appreciate if you could share our concerns with the supervisors at the township meeting and consent to the reading of this email during the meeting.
I reached out to Chris and Amanda. Are you Chris?
I am.
Fantastic. Chris, do you mind just giving a quick rehash,
Sure.
since you live right there?
Chris Christopko, 122 Burger Road. We come off of Zieglerville quite often, and if you've ever made that turn, luckily you live in the area, so you know there's going to be cars on either side. You got to be really careful there. I'm surprised that there haven't been accidents at this corner, because you could get a car and a half through when you've got cars on both sides, probably. And if you're not aware of the issue and you're coming off of Zieglerville, we just talked about it, we all know that people drive too quickly on Zieglerville, you're coming off that too quickly, suddenly you're face to face with a car coming out of the development. And because there's cars on both lines, the sight lines are really poor, so you can't even see that car coming out. And if there's children playing there, I mean, it's to the point where I'm shocked that there hasn't been something done already, or that there hasn't been something, you know, more serious that's happened there, but it seems like a big deal, safety-wise, for coming off of Zieglerville. It's rough.
I'm gonna echo Chris's comments. I live on Goshen Road, and he's right. If you live on the road, or you live right nearby the road, you know to slow down. But anytime anybody might pass through, they get on Zieglerville, they're gonna pass through to Goshen to come out through to Village Drive. They might not know that, especially if they're new to the area and they're just trying to cut through. The issue here is the cars are parked on both sides at that corner. And Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if we potentially looked at having no parking on one side, 2 cars can safely.
Oh, I think so, absolutely. Yeah, I think if you had no parking on one side, that would solve the problem, and it would create better sight lines as well for people who are turning off in Zieglerville.
I think a lot of the result, Brian Hill, 11 Zieglerville Road, is that my wife and I lived in the Cedar Hill townhouses, and what I've seen happen is not as many families have moved out of there. Their children have now grown, and now their children are driving. When we lived there for 10 years, there was nowhere clear that many cars in that development. Now it's every street you go, they're lining, and I don't think the way it was built was to have that many. There was really only, frankly, 2 spots per townhouse. Now you see people who have 4, and then they're parking down the cul-de-sacs, and they're parking alongside. I mean, it's just that there was just never enough parking to substantiate the amount of drivers that live in that development. It's
Frankly, also with the side, when you take a look at it, when you're coming, let's say you're going on Goshen, you're exiting onto Zieglerville, the left-hand side really can only fit 3 or 4 cars max, if I'm correct.
So I was gonna say, you're only taking 3 or 4 cars.
Exactly.
right?
So if there's no parking on that side, you're only talking about 3 or 4 cars that would have to find other spots. And I will tell you, personally, a lot of times what I'll do is I park my 2 cars in, because we do have 3 cars in our household. We'll park our cars in.
you put-
Is your daughter driving already?
2 cars. Well,
I was gonna say,
my daughter is
I have
already
3
driving.
cars
I'm in
with 2
trouble.
guys. That
Yeah,
makes
that's the
sense.
challenge. That's the challenge.
So then we look at putting no parking signs up on
On the
the
one
left
side.
side,
And then painting
going
it
out to
yellow?
Zieglerville Road, correct?
Correct.
And then you have to paint it yellow, is that
If the
the?
board would like to do that, in the past, what I've done for the township is very simple 1 or 2 page engineering study on which you can base that ordinance, and when the solicitor adds that to your codes. That's how it's been done in the past, that's how we work on signs on Circle Drive and numerous other places in town.
Can we
the
just add a
ordinance for three
page?
parking space?
It adds, it's added to the page of no parking in your code.
No, I mean, is it required?
Yeah.
Does that go to the traffic
Yes.
code then?
Well, it just is added to our present ordinance that regulates parking in other areas. And it's a very simple
It's only
1
gonna affect
page.
3 or 4 cars, and I think.
And I'll do that for Goshen coming off of Zieglerville. The other thing that was mentioned in here is Berger. Now, that's a cul-de-sac, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, I don't know where if the board wants to address that or not. There's some traffic calming benefit to not being able to fit cars both ways on a little cul-de-sac like that. It doesn't get the kind of traffic that Goshen does. If you want me to look at that, I will. If you want to leave that alone at this point and just address Goshen.
Well, I think Berger, we're just talking just some parking at the bottom of the cul-de-sac, right? Because both
No,
sides
they're
is parking
referencing
spaces.
Burger when you exit Burger to
You
get onto
exit Berger,
Goshen.
not Berger
Yeah.
That's what they're
itself.
talking
Yeah,
about.
they,
That could-
Burger
They
itself is
park
not
on
the
both
issue.
sides of Burger Lane.
Burger,
Yeah.
yeah. They just
Okay,
go all the way
then, a situation like that, you shouldn't be parking so close to a corner,
up. Right.
okay?
So-
So, there should be a sign put up there,
No
that,
parking
you know,
from here to
X
Parking
amount
right
of
in the
feet.
corner.
Yeah, I think it's on.
If-
And
Yeah, parking
then
here.
they must be parking right next to the stop sign.
Yeah.
Isn't it,
Okay.
isn't it 15
Almost, yep.
feet, Carol?
They are.
Which is
Well,
illegal
same thing
anyway.
on Goshen, they come all the way up to just about the edge, so sight lines are
I
really
mean,
tough coming out. here.
Same with Berger, really, and living on Berger, I think it's less dramatic, because people aren't really flying off of Goshen into Berger, although I'm
Yeah,
sure
I
it's
wouldn't
not,
go there.
but if you did have enforcement of that 15 or 20 feet, I think that would make a big difference
There you
too.
go.
Because at least you can see what's coming, and if I have to wait for somebody to come out, not a big deal, I don't think anybody has a problem with that, but it is bad there too. I mean, and some of these cars, I feel like they don't move, that they just sit there, and it may or may not be operative, but
And-
that's another.
And I don't wanna play devil's advocate, but how many additional cars are we talking about with that last thing you talked about?
Burger specifically?
Yeah.
Two.
To the stop sign.
Oh, you
2
mean,
to 3.
yeah, but yeah, 2 to 3
2 to
probably.
3 on each side, so that's a total of how many cars? It's like 6, 7, 8?
You wouldn't need it on both sides of
Yeah,
the
just
road,
one
just
side.
on the
On the stop
left
sign.
side coming down to the stop sign.
Yeah.
Just
That's
on the
another
stop.
2 cars, that's like
2 to
5,
2 to
6
3
cars
probably.
total.
Yeah.
Okay, so people are not gonna like have a riot if they lose 6
So
cars.
we're talking anywhere from
To be honest,
Three-
first off, I
4
live in
to
the
5,
development, you can
4 to
park in,
6
as long
cars,
as you don't have
Yeah.
several cars in
Between
one
both
household,
locations?
you're able to park it.
Yeah.
Backing
Both,
in your own
right?
cars. A lot of times people are already doing
Prob-
that, you're
Yeah.
seeing
Probably
cars
closer to
that are
7 or
parking
8 at
themselves
both
in.
locations,
Yeah.
big or both locations.
see that a lot.
I mean, even though we have the cul-de-sac, whenever we have guests over, we usually just tell them to park us in, or, you know,
Yeah.
so just to reduce the amount of cars in the
Yeah,
cul-de-sac.
okay.
Bob.
I burned Zieglerville Road. Obviously, I live right there at Zieglerville and Goshen, so I see everything that's happening right there. And about a month ago, over where Josh lives, they had their parking lot seal coated. So for 2 or 3 days, they couldn't park on that. They were parked out front on Zieglerville, all the way around the curve on both sides. And I know last year Tommy went out, when I requested the stop sign, or the no parking signs be enforced out on Zieglerville. Since Tommy changed them, we really haven't had anybody parking out there. But then since we've enacted the traffic calming, by allowing the people to park out there on Zieglerville, so in front of Josh and on the other side going down to Mr. Grimley, if we allow them to park there and paint those areas so that, you know, they're hashed out, so all the openings are there and site clearances are there, it gives those homes, those existing people to park there that wouldn't be parking in the other location. And I've asked probably at least 10 or 12 of those residents there, they're all for it. They would love to be able to park out on Zieglerville. So that would solve part of the problem that we're having right now at Zieglerville and Goshen by taking those 5 or 6 spots away right there. That alleviates it up front. We're gonna gain more than that out front.
What's the reason for not allowing parking there? I know exactly what you're talking about.
Likely when that development was constructed, those were deceleration and acceleration lanes. But I don't know that you need decel
Kind
and
of comes in,
acceleration.
Well,
it looks like
well,
parking.
Depends on how fast.
Allowing the park out there and not having the decel and excel lane
Might-
would makes it tighter for the cars
Yeah.
to slow down, because now a car coming up Zieglerville Road to turn into Goshen, okay, the car behind it has to slow down and almost wait for that car to make the
Yeah.
turn, or either way.
You know, believe it or not, most of the people don't use that as a decel lane. I mean, maybe the last 20 feet they do, but not usually at all. And the other thing is that, you know, the trash cans are out there all the time. Especially on the higher side going towards Grimley's, because of the slope, the road's higher than their parking lot, so they leave their trash cans up there. So by allowing them to park there, they're gonna be parking next to their trash cans the whole way. So,
Good news is if you wanted to eliminate the no parking in those areas, it would be the same ordinance that Tom was talking about changing a few moments ago, so it could all be done at the same time without it.
I mean, I know exactly what you're
Without
talking
additional
about, I never
costs.
really understood why, I mean, it looks like it was made for parking, frankly.
Yep.
Okay,
So what do we have to do?
So charge me with giving you a brief study to support what you wanna do, so that you've got an engineering study behind it, and then Tom will draft a vision of the ordinance for you to act on at a public meeting.
So moved.
second. Any more questions?
All those in favor say aye.
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 thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Next bit of correspondence is from State Senator Bob Mensch, just informing about a Veterans Appreciation Breakfast on Saturday, November 3rd at the Upper Perk High School. Have a request here for a Mark T. and Christy Livesey for a release of escrow. I've given that to Carol for her review to look at, and hopefully have a report on that for the next meeting. And last bit is from the Montgomery County Department of Public Safety, just an update on their radio project. And that's it for my correspondence.
We're gonna talk about the big lady? the striking bid?
We actually are gonna pull that off the table. We only have,
It comes up again in mine.
it comes up in here too.
Okay,
but
okay.
Yep.
I have no administrative actions. Any public comment on the agenda items?
I have a question.
Okay.
Chuck Geiser, North Rhineford Road. For the parking things that you just discussed, I mean, are those things that you want this traffic calming commission to look at and then recommend something to you, or do you want to continue to work at that at the board level? I was never sure how that happens, you know?
This was brought directly to the board by the residents, so.
Right.
I don't think there's any requirement for us to send it back down for more.
Okay, I just didn't know how, you know.
deliberation, really, but it's up to the,
I mean, these
board.
types of issues, when they come up, do you wanna direct people to the commission first and then the board, or it's up
I
to
think
you?
it kind of discourages them, quite honestly. I, just my personal opinion, probably coming to the board first. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you're appreciative of it getting here
Yeah.
and getting resolved as soon as possible.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
I mean, how do you feel, Bob, that, you know, we're moving forward to get that done?
Great, man, I've been
Instead
asking
of
for a year.
running through your board.
Well, that was actually a question I was gonna bring up, I didn't know if now was the time to bring it up or not. When we started the traffic calming, we were directed by Mr. Keenan at the advice of supervisors to start on the townhouses. And then instead of it being the whole townhouses, it became Village Drive. So technically, our job is done until you tell us to move forward. So that was one of the questions I was gonna have for you guys tonight. If you want us to move forward to a different direction, to Cedar Hill, to Main Street, or wherever, or, you know, if the police wanna give us areas that they have more knowledge of, then we need to know from you whether that's what you want us to do. And I think Carol can expand on this because it's actually part of our minutes and our discussion we just had this past week, where really we have to be told by you guys what to do. Now, Carol, do you want to take off from there from how you explained it the other day? Because I think you said it the best.
Sure, there's, the way the policy and objectives are set up for the traffic calming committee, the traffic calming committee will evaluate locations as directed by the board of supervisors. So the committee received direction to look at the Village Drive issues, and that's what they've been focused on. There's two ways to go at this point. Either the board can continue to select issues that they want the traffic calming committee involved in, and so direct the traffic calming committee when the next issue arises. Or your other alternative, we looked at some other municipalities where they have criteria to decide what the traffic calming committee looks at. So the traffic calming could utilize what we've seen in other townships to develop criteria that the township traffic calming committee is going to look at a road when there's this percentage of speeding or this number of complaints, where it meets certain thresholds or criteria. Some of the townships we looked at said we don't touch state roads, you know, and actually came up with a list of criteria. So what that would do, if that's something the board wanted, that would sort of expand their scope to say, if we get a petition of so many people, whatever the criteria is, if we get a petition of so many people or so many complaints, and we give it to the police and they say the threshold is here for speeding, then it's something the traffic calming committee would meet and start to look at.